Good morning, students. How are you today? Hope you're doing well. Hope you survived that Neolithic Revolution test that we took. Today, we continue to move on with China, India, looking at the Far East. We're going to focus a little bit today on the religions. First, I want to tell you a story that comes from a the Hindu tradition. The story is called "Who Knows What's Good or Bad." There was a guy who uh, owned a big farm, and he wasn't very wealthy, but he had a lot of land. And one day, his son was out exploring and came across this very valuable group of wild horses. And the son was able to get control of the horses and bring the horses into the land and put them behind the fence. And the farmer's neighbor found out about the new horses, and he immediately came over to the farmer's house and he said, "Man, this is great. How awesome. You've got all these brand new horses. You're going to be rich. They're so valuable." And the Hindu farmer responded to his neighbor, "Who knows what's good or bad?" So the next day, the farmer's son was out trying to train some of the horses, trying to ride them in the corral, and in a freak accident, he fell off one of the horses and severely broke his leg. And when the farmer's neighbor heard about the farmer's son's broken leg, he came over to his house. He goes, "Oh man, what a bummer. What a drag. How terrible. That's so bad. Can't believe that your son broke his leg training those horses." Hindu farmer looked at his neighbor and said, "Who knows what's good or bad?" Next day, turns out that India was getting itself embroiled in a war, and some government officials came out to the farmer's house, and they were going to conscript or sign up the farmer's son to go out and fight the war. But just the previous day, the farmer's son had broken his leg. The farmer had to tell the army that his son could not go fight. And again, when the farmer's neighbor heard the story, he came over to the farmer to congratulate him about how his son missed going into the army. And the Hindu farmer said, "Who knows what's good or bad?" I tell this story to you because religion provides meaning in societies and communities throughout history. And many of these meanings, many of these stories are not easy. Some of them are in conflict. They don't often even agree with each other. Hinduism is one of the oldest religions and one of the oldest cultures that we know. Comes from India. But there are different strands of the Indian religion. There are old books that we've had that have been around for 2,700 years called the Rig Veda. Talks about all these different Hindu gods that were born and then came back and embodied themselves as spirits in other people's bodies, and Vishnu. And the Hindu religion boasts like 20,000 gods. Okay, there are thousands and thousands of Hindu gods. And they incorporate into the bodies of other people and come back, so that there may be a Vishnu god living right now in the soul of some Hindu. But along with that, a very old tradition in Hindu writing was the Upanishads. The Upanishads are an old uh, holy series of holy books written about the Hindu religion. And the Upanishads tell a different story. You see, um, while the Rig Veda is polytheistic and they believe Hinduism has many, many gods, the Upanishads teach differently, that they teach a monistic way of looking at life, Mono, of course, means one. So monistic would mean like one idea. And see where some religions have this difference between God and humanity, between people and God, or between nature and God. In Hinduism, according to the Upanishads, reality is monistic. There's no difference between the divine and the human, the natural and the supernatural, but all of it is one. Hinduism is characterized or very well known for several major doctrines. One of the major doctrines in Hinduism is the doctrine of karma. Karma teaches us that however we live in this life, whether we do well or whether we do ill, we are going to reap the rewards of that by how we come back into the next life. Either we will have, if we've done well, we'll come back in some kind of better condition. We'll transmigrate again back by our soul into another living situation. If we've not done well, we may transmigrate back into the world in some worse condition. We could be the king possibly in our next life if our transmigration is ready for that, if our reincarnation prepares us for that, or we could come back in the next life and live our lives as the fly on the back of an outhouse wall. So transmigration or reincarnation is the idea that people come back in following lifetimes, in future lifetimes, based upon how they live their lives in this lifetime. Karma, transmigration, or reincarnation. It is very, very linked in Hinduism to one station in life called their caste. Hindus believe that the gods indicated what a person's position was to be economically, what they were supposed to do in their life, who was of a higher order and who was a lower order, and that the best thing that you could do in your life was serve your caste faithfully, do the best you could, even though in Indian society there was no social mobility. There was no way to go from being a lower caste to being an upper caste. The only change seemed to be the only possibility for change would be to do the best you could, and hopefully you could transmigrate to a better situation. Now, for many Hindus, for many thousands of years, this doctrine of transmigration becomes just a terrible, vexing thing to them because you can never get out of this life. You know, you constantly are coming back and can never get delivered. One time there was a young Hindu man named Siddhartha Gautama, who we call the Buddha, who was vexed by this very same thing, this unending series of birth and rebirth and reincarnation, transmigration. He felt that it was a trap and that life was a trap, a hopeless trap that you couldn't get out of. And he sought to find a way to break through it and challenge his way to a new understanding of life, what he would call enlightenment. He sat, we are told, under the Bodhi tree for like 6 days and just contemplated reality, meditated until he could achieve some kind of understanding of what was going on. And the Buddha, in his experience, did find a way out, did find a path out toward enlightenment. The path toward enlightenment for the Buddha had four truths. Okay, the truths: number one, in Buddhism, all life involves suffering. Number two, the cause of suffering in life is desire. It's the fact that we want things. So if we want to eliminate suffering from life, if we want to get rid of our suffering, number three, we're going to need to eliminate our desire. And then in order to eliminate our desires, the Buddha proposed what he called the Eightfold Path. And these are 8 practices that different kinds of people can pursue to get enlightenment and to get away from this terror of being reincarnated and coming back transmigrated and all this stuff, that we can realize our oneness with reality, that really all those things that we think that are real and that we want are really an illusion, and that we can find a oneness with with reality, with something beyond ourselves. In both Hinduism and Buddhism, we have this idea of the Atman, the universal, uh, universal unity that we can become part of. But in Buddhism, this nirvana, this reaching of enlightenment, releases us from the Hindu notion of eternally coming back and transmigration. Um, I want to contrast these religions with the even with the religion of Confucius, which was mainly a secular, non-supernatural religion that taught basic concepts um, about our relationships with one another within families and our responsibilities to create the right kind of society, best society possible. Uh, so for today, if we're comparing and contrasting, we see that Confucianism comes from China. We see that Hinduism and Buddhism both come originally from India, although Buddhism transmigrated or culturally diffused, I'm sorry, to China, and is one of the top, if not the top religion in China right now. So Buddhism and Hinduism originally both come from India, Buddhism coming later from the religion of the Hindus. And it's a very similar situation if you look at the way Christianity emerged from the older religion of Judaism, or the way that Islam later on in the Common Era emerges really out of the shadow of both Judaism and Christianity. We can't say everything we said here. I've already gone 12 minutes with this video. I think that we have given you enough material to at least answer the compare and contrast that is in your day 11 folder. Please know that I will be posting an open Google Meet for anybody that has questions on these things, and we are just getting started with our study of China and India and those ancient societies. Thank you very much, you guys. We'll be in touch.